All right, fuck the formalities. Let's just dive right into this shitstorm of epic fails.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Hollywood's biggest box office bombs.
Bombs!
We're talking about movies that crashed and burned harder than a goddamn meteor or something.
Right.
You guys sent us a whole bunch of articles, research and all that on this topic. And we're going to break down why some of these big budget flicks ended up taking a bigger shit than a constipated elephant.
We're going beyond.
Right.
We're going beyond just like, naming and shaming these disasters. Right?
Yeah.
We're going deep into the why. Like, how can a movie go so wrong?
Right.
And trust me, there are more ways than you think.
Oh, I bet. First up,
Yeah.
let's talk Heaven's Gate.
Oh, yeah.
This movie was so goddamn expensive.
Oh, yeah.
And disastrous. It basically sent United Artists straight to bankruptcy court. You mentioned directorial indulgence, but what does that really mean?
Right.
Was the director just on like a massive ego trip?
Well, it's more than just ego, right?
Okay.
Cimino, the director, had this like maniacal attention to detail. Like he would insist on building entire sets from scratch, right?
Wow.
And he would shoot take after take after take until he got exactly what he wanted.
Jeez.
Even if it meant going way over budget and way behind schedule.
Wow.
Like, for instance, he demanded that they rebuild an entire 19th century town just to move a street 100 feet for a better camera angle.
Oh, come on.
And that's the type of indulgence that sank this film.
That's insane, man.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
And speaking of insane and overblown budgets, how about Sahara?
Yeah.
That desert adventure flick starring Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah.
That went almost $80 million over budget.
And that brings up a really crucial point that you need to understand about how the movie business works. Studios don't just pocket all the money a movie makes at the box office.
Right.
They usually split it with the theaters.
Yeah.
Using what's called the scratch formula.
Okay, hold up. Explain the scratch formula thing. I'm assuming it's not as simple as just dividing the money in half.
You're right. No. It's a little more complicated than that.
Yeah.
Basically, the formula varies depending on the week of release and the specific deals that are made with theaters, right?
Okay.
But on average, studios end up taking home around 50% of the gross box office revenue.
Okay.
Which means that even a film that rakes in, a decent amount might not be as profitable as you think.
Oh, okay.
Especially if the production costs are through the roof.
Right.
Right.
So it's not just about how much money a movie makes.
It's about how much it costs to make in the first place.
It's how much it costs to make in the first place.
Exactly.
Okay.
So take John Carter, for instance. Right. It made a respectable $284 million worldwide.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Sounds like a hit, right?
That sounds like a lot of money.
But the budget and marketing costs were over $300 million. Oh. So that means Disney, despite bringing in all that cash, was still in the red.
Ouch.
Yeah.
That's gotta hurt. But sometimes you hear about these movies that bomb initially, but then later gain a cult following.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like they become so bad, they're good.
Yeah.
Or they appeal to like a niche audience or something that appreciates their weirdness.
You're absolutely right. And Waterworld, the one that you mentioned earlier, is a perfect example of that.
Really?
It was actually the most expensive film ever made at the time.
Wow.
And it was considered a massive flop.
Right.
But over time, through international releases, home video sales, and even theme park attractions, it actually ended up making a profit. And now some people consider it a cult classic.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So some of these bombs.
Always a wild turnaround, yeah.
They get a second life.
They can. It's rare, but they can.
That's crazy.
And today, social media plays a huge role in a film's success or failure.
Oh, yeah.
Like, negative word of mouth can spread like wildfire online.
Yeah.
Especially during those crucial opening weekend numbers.
Oh, especially opening weekend, yeah.
Yeah.
People can be brutal on Twitter.
Yeah.
One bad review and it's gone. Yeah.
And this wasn't always the case, right? Like back in the old days, bad timing could also sink a film.
Yeah.
Like D.W. Griffith's Intolerance back in 1916 completely flopped because its anti-war message didn't exactly resonate with audiences as America was gearing up to enter World War I.
Oh, wow.
So, really bad timing.
Yeah, talk about bad timing.
Yeah.
Reminds me of that FIFA propaganda film.
Yeah.
United Passions.
United Passions, yeah.
Released right when FIFA's bigwigs were getting busted.
Right, when all the
corruption.
Yeah, all the corruption, yeah.
Talk about a PR nightmare.
Oh, yeah.
And then you have external factors.
And then you had...
like, completely beyond anyone's control.
Things beyond your control.
Yeah.
Like, think about it. 9/11 attacks, Hurricane Harvey, COVID-19 pandemic.
Yeah.
Like, these events can tank a film.
No matter how good the movie is.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you remember during COVID when theaters were basically ghost towns?
Oh, yeah.
We were all glued to our couches, streaming whatever we could find.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
But sometimes a movie.
But sometimes it can tank domestically.
It can tank here.
Yeah.
But kill it overseas?
Really?
Yeah. The Golden Compass is a great example. It bombed in North America, but did incredibly well internationally.
Why wouldn't the studio?
Well, that's where it gets interesting.
They had pre-sold the international distribution rights to fund the film's production.
Oh.
It was a gamble
wow.
that didn't pay off for them. They basically screwed themselves out of a huge chunk of the potential profits.
Okay.
It's one of the reasons why New Line Cinema ended up being absorbed by Warner Bros.
That's messed up.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So we've talked about budget blowouts, bad timing, social media backlash.
All these things.
And even selling off international rights.
Yeah.
But what happened to the studio when a movie tanks this hard? They just like shrug it off and keep...
Right. Do they just go, whatever, on to the next one?
Yeah.
Not always.
Not always.
A major flop can put a studio deep in debt.
Really?
Sometimes it even leads to bankruptcy or closure.
Oh, wow.
Like, what happened to United Artists after Heaven's Gate and Cuoco Pictures after Cutthroat Island?
So it's not just about bruised egos.
There's serious financial fallout involved.
Wow.
And in the world of independent films, the stakes are even higher.
Oh, yeah.
The margins are thinner and the risks are arguably even greater.
Okay.
Yeah.
Speaking of independent films, have you heard of Zizek's Road?
Ah, yes. Zizek's Road,
Yeah.
a legendary tale of box office failure.
What is this?
This 2006 film earned a grand total of, wait for it,
Okay.
$30 at the box office.
$30.
Are you kidding me?
I am not kidding you.
How is that even possible?
It's actually pretty straightforward.
Okay.
Although a bit bizarre.
Okay.
They only screened it in one theater in Dallas for 6 days.
What?
And this extremely limited release was just to fulfill some Screen Actors Guild requirements.
Okay, but what exactly are these Screen Actors Guild requirements? Basically, for a film to qualify for certain benefits and distribution options, it needs to have a theatrical release.
Okay.
Even if it's just a token one.
Right.
So in this case, Zizek's Road needed to play in a theater for a minimum number of days to meet these requirements.
So they basically set it up to fail.
Pretty much, yeah.
How many people actually saw this thing?
So according to one of the actors,
Okay.
only 6 tickets were sold.
6 tickets.
6 tickets.
Oh my.
And get this, 2 of those were bought by cast members.
What? They were paying to watch their own movie. That's so sad.
Yeah, that's sad.
And hilarious.
It's both, right.
Okay,
it really highlights the extremes of box office failure.
Yeah.
But it also brings us to an important point.
Okay.
Not all bombs stay bombs.
What do you mean?
Some of them eventually gain recognition as,
right.
the masterpieces they truly are.
Okay.
They become cult classics
right.
or something like that.
Okay, yeah.
Right. So think about films like Vertigo, Blade Runner, The Shawshank Redemption.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Initially, they flopped at the box office.
Wow.
But now they're considered cinematic treasures.
That's pretty amazing. So there's hope for Zizek's Road.
Yeah.
Might be a masterpiece tomorrow.
Exactly. You hit the nail on the head. The definition of success in the film industry can be very, very fluid.
Right, okay.
Sometimes financial failure doesn't equal artistic failure.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
So before we go any further, let's take a step back.
Okay.
And consider everything we've covered so far.
Yeah.
We talked about these insane budget blowouts, the bad time, the brutal power of social media.
The power of social media.
And even the weird world of Screen Actors Guild requirements.
Yeah, it's a whole world.
Right. It seems like there are a million ways for a movie to tank.
It seems like it.
But what are some of the
the
most common pitfalls that filmmakers fall into?
Yeah, what are the common pitfalls?
And what are the biggest lessons we can learn?
And what can we learn
from these box office bombs?
What can we learn from these bombs? We'll get into all that after the break.
All that and more right here.
Right here on the deep dive.
All right.
All right. So welcome back. Let's keep digging into this graveyard of cinematic misfires.
Right.
We've talked about all these external factors that can torpedo a film.
Yeah, yeah.
But what about the movies themselves?
Right.
Like, are there just some bombs out there that were just plain bad?
Oh, hell yeah.
Just plain and simple.
We've all seen those movies.
Right.
That make you want to claw your eyes out.
Yeah.
With a rusty spork.
With a rusty spork.
The ones that leave you wondering how the hell they ever got made in the first place.
Right.
Right.
And there is an almost endless list of examples.
Oh, yeah.
But let's talk about Ishtar.
Ishtar.
From 1987. It's often cited as one of the most critically and commercially reviled films of all time.
Of all time.
And the crazy part is, it starred Dustin Hoffman and Warren Beatty.
What?
It's like two Hollywood heavyweights.
Seriously. Those guys are legends.
Yeah.
How the hell could they screw up that badly?
Well, the production was a total shit show from the start.
Really?
Creative clashes, endless script rewrites,
Why?
and a budget that ballooned to a ridiculous $55 million.
$55 million?
$55 million.
For a movie that bombed harder than a Michael Bay explosion scene.
I know, right?
What the hell? No wonder they call it Hollywood accounting.
It made a pathetic $14 million at the box office.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, critics ripped it to shreds, calling it a lifeless, massive, lumbering exercise in cinematic self-indulgence.
Ouch.
Yeah.
It sounds like they threw a mountain of cash at a turd and hoped it would turn into a diamond.
Sometimes even A-list talent.
Right.
And a fat budget can't save a film from disaster.
Right.
And speaking of disasters, Battlefield Earth.
Oh, God, yes.
Yeah.
That John Travolta Scientology epic.
Epic.
Talk about a cinematic train wreck.
Oh, yeah.
What were they thinking?
Right.
Those costumes and special effects.
What were they thinking?
It was like a bad acid trip.
It was
mixed with a high school play.
It was like a fever dream.
Yeah.
That film was a perfect storm of bad decisions.
Yeah, really.
Travolta was apparently a driving force behind getting it made.
Oh, really?
And his passion for Scientology definitely clouded his judgment.
Okay.
The script was a mess. The direction was all over the place.
Right. And the special effects look like they were created on a Commodore 64.
And don't even get me started on those Dutch angles.
The Dutch angles.
It's like watching the whole movie through a funhouse mirror.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's something, though.
But, you know, there's a certain charm to its awfulness. It's become like a cult classic. In a so bad it's good kind of way.
Yeah. It's definitely achieved a certain level of notoriety.
Right.
But let's move on from cinematic excrement.
All right.
And talk about another factor
that
can lead a movie straight to the box office graveyard.
Okay, let's hear it.
Miscasting.
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 You mean like putting the wrong actor in a role?
Yeah, putting the wrong actor in a role.
Like casting Tom Cruise as a romantic lead.
Well, let's not go that far.
Right.
But think about the 1997 film, The Postman.
The Postman.
It starred Kevin Costner, who was riding high after Dances with Wolves.
Wait. Waterworld, wasn't that supposed to be a bomb, too?
It was initially considered a flop,
yeah.
But as we discussed, it eventually earned back its budget and more.
Okay.
But back to The Postman.
Okay.
Costner was known for playing these, rugged, stoic characters.
Yeah.
But in The Postman, he was supposed to be this charismatic, inspirational leader, and he just couldn't pull it off.
So they basically cast Clint Eastwood in a role meant for, I don't know, Tom Hanks or something.
It wasn't that extreme,
okay,
but you get the idea.
Yeah.
The film was a critical and commercial disaster, losing an estimated $80 million.
Damn, that's gotta sting.
Yeah.
So miscasting can really sink a movie.
Miscasting can really sink a movie.
It's like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole.
It's like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole.
It's like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole.
It's just not going to work.
It's just not going to work.
Right.
Another excellent analogy. They're on a roll.
I try to keep things lively.
Yeah.
For our listeners. This is the deep dive, not some stuffy film class.
Not a film class.
Right. But seriously, is there any way
to
predict whether a movie will be a hit or miss?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Hollywood is a fickle beast.
Right.
And predicting box office success is notoriously difficult.
Yeah.
There's so many variables involved.
So it's basically a crapshoot.
In many ways, yes.
Okay.
But there are certain factors that can increase a film's chances of success.
All right.
You know, a strong script, a talented director, a compelling cast are all essential ingredients.
Yeah. Those are pretty obvious.
Those are pretty obvious. Right. Yeah.
But what about things like genre or release date?
Genre or release date.
Do those matter?
Absolutely. Yeah. Certain genres, like superhero films and big-budget action flicks, are almost guaranteed to rake in the cash.
Oh, yeah.
They're like cinematic comfort food.
Right.
People know what they're getting.
Yeah.
And they keep coming back for more.
Right. Those are the safe bets.
Right.
But what about release date?
Release date is crucial.
Okay.
Studios want to get the most bang for their buck.
Right.
So they strategically release their big budget films during peak seasons.
Okay.
Like summer and the holidays, when everyone's off work and looking for a way to escape reality for a few hours.
Right. Makes sense.
Right.
More butts in seats.
More butts in seats.
More cash in their pockets.
More cash in their pockets.
Right. But even with
all these factors in play, there's no guarantee of success.
Right.
Sometimes a film just doesn't connect with audiences.
Yeah.
No matter how much money or star power is thrown at it.
It's like trying to force feed someone Brussels sprouts.
Yeah. Trying to force feed someone Brussels sprouts.
Yeah.
You can try all you want.
Yeah.
But they're probably going to spit them out.
Right. Perfect analogy. But let's get back to our cinematic
car crashes. To our cinematic car crashes.
We've covered.
Yeah, we've covered
bad movies, miscasting.
We've covered bad movies, miscasting.
It's unpredictability.
Yeah, unpredictability of the market.
Right.
Right. What else?
Can send a movie straight to box office hell.
Can send a movie straight to box office hell? Studio interference.
Studio interference.
I
mean, like those meddling execs.
Those meddling execs.
Sticking their noses where they don't belong. The suits. Who think they know more about
filmmaking
than the actual filmmakers.
Precisely. Sometimes studio executives can exert too much control over a film's creative direction.
Right.
And that can completely stifle the director's vision and lead to a compromised final product.
Right.
You end up with a Frankenstein monster of a movie stitched together from conflicting ideas and studio notes.
It's like those cooking shows where the contestants have to use random ingredients chosen by the judges.
Exactly.
It never turns out well. Right.
But it's not always that simple.
Okay.
Studios are businesses.
Right.
And they're investing a ton of money in these films.
Right.
They want to see a return on their investment.
Right.
And they're going to try to protect that investment, even if it means stepping on some creative toes.
I get that. But sometimes their meddling backfires.
Sometimes their meddling backfires spectacularly.
Like with Heaven's Gate, which we talked about earlier.
Right.
Director Michael Cimino had almost complete creative control.
Yeah.
And the whole thing.
And he ran
ruled out of control.
He ran wild with it.
Both creatively and financially.
Right. The budget ballooned.
Yeah.
The shooting schedule went out the window.
Yeah.
And the final cut of the film was over 5 hours long.
5 hours long.
Jeez. The studio eventually took control.
Okay.
And released a much shorter version.
Right.
But the damage was already done.
It's like giving a kid with ADHD a sugar rush.
It's like...
And then locking him in a toy store.
Chaos ensues. Right. Another very vivid image.
So studio interference could be a real buzzkill.
It can be a real buzzkill.
But what about those cases where...
But what about...
The marketing is just completely screwed up.
When the marketing is just completely screwed up?
Like bad trailers.
Right.
Misleading advertising.
Bad trailers? Misleading advertising?
Just a complete lack of buzz.
You're talking about marketing mishaps.
Yeah.
And they can be a death sentence for a film.
Really?
Yeah. Sometimes studios make really dumb decisions when it comes to promoting their movies.
Like what? Give me some examples.
They might target the wrong audience.
Right.
Or misrepresent the film's genre or tone.
Right.
Like... trying to sell a slasher flick as a family-friendly comedy.
Or like that time they tried to market snakes on a plane.
Oh, yeah.
As a serious thriller? Come on, people want to see Samuel L. Jackson battling giant snakes.
Right.
Not some psychological drama about air travel.
You need to know your audience.
Right.
And market the film accordingly.
Right.
Otherwise, you're setting yourself up for disappointment.
Yeah, you don't want to piss off your audience.
Yeah, you don't want to piss off your audience.
Before they even buy a ticket. Right. Speaking of pissed off audiences.
Right, speaking of pissed off audiences.
What about those movies that were supposed to be Oscar bait?
Right.
But ended up bombing at the box office.
Right.
You know, those pretentious art films.
Right. Those pretentious art films.
That critics love.
Critics love them.
But regular people.
But normal people.
Find boring as hell.
Yes.
Yeah.
The critical darlings that failed to connect with the mainstream.
Right.
They often have beautiful cinematography, thought-provoking themes, award-worthy performances.
Right.
But they lack that certain something that draws in a wider audience.
Like The Tree of Life.
Right.
I swear I almost died of boredom in the theater.
Yeah.
It was like watching paint dry, but with more dinosaurs and Brad Pitt.
Yeah, that's one way to put it.
Yeah.
It's a visually stunning and ambitious film.
Right.
But it's also very slow and contemplative. You know? It's not for everyone.
Yeah.
And it definitely wasn't for the average moviegoer.
It's like serving a gourmet meal to someone who just wants a cheeseburger.
Serving a gourmet meal to someone who just wants a cheeseburger.
Right.
Another excellent culinary comparison.
I had a million of them.
You do. But let's shift gears a little bit.
All right.
And talk about the flip side of box office bombs.
Okay.
The cult classics.
Cult classics. Okay.
Right?
Those movies that tanked initially.
Yeah.
But then gained a devoted following over time.
Right.
It's like they rose from the ashes of box office hell.
Some films that are considered failures at first can eventually find an audience and achieve a level of critical and commercial redemption.
It's like the ugly duckling turning into a beautiful swan.
There you go.
Or that weird kid in high school who becomes a rock star.
You're going with those optimistic analogies today.
I am, yeah. I'm feeling good.
You are.
But you get the idea. Right.
Cult films often have.
Cult films often have something unique or unconventional about them.
Right.
They might be ahead of their time.
Okay.
Or just plain weird.
Right.
But they connect with a certain group of people.
Yeah.
Who appreciate their offbeat charm.
Like the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Oh, yeah. The Rocky Horror Picture Show.
That movie bombed when it first came out.
It bombed when it first came out.
Right.
But it's become like a midnight movie institution.
Yeah. People go dressed up, they sing along, they throw a toast at the screen. It's a whole experience.
It's an experience.
That is.
It's a whole experience. And another one is Blade Runner.
Blade Runner.
It was a box office flop in 1982. But it's now considered a sci-fi masterpiece.
So what makes a movie a cult classic?
What makes a movie a cult classic?
Is there some formula?
Secret formula.
There's no guaranteed formula.
Okay.
But certain factors can contribute to a film's cult status.
Okay.
You know, they often have passionate directors with a strong vision.
Okay.
They challenge conventional storytelling or genre tropes.
Right.
And they connect with a specific subculture or demographic.
Okay.
You know, like those indie films that get screened at festivals.
Right.
And then develop a following through word of mouth.
Yeah. Word of mouth.
Right. And sometimes a film's cult status is boosted by things that happen outside the film itself.
Like what?
Like re-releases, home video availability, online fandom can all play a role.
Right.
You know, think about how streaming services like Netflix and Hulu have introduced a whole new generation to classic films.
Right, that makes sense.
Right.
A movie that bombed in theaters in the 80s might find a whole new audience on Netflix.
We might find a whole new audience on Netflix.
Like given those forgotten gems.
A second chance.
A second chance.
But even with those cult classics, it's still a gamble.
There's no guarantee that a movie's going to find an audience no matter how good it is.
Then a movie will find an audience no matter how good it is.
That's the beauty. And the frustration. Of the film industry.
Right.
It's a complex ecosystem.
Yeah. And there's no magic formula for success. Sometimes you just have to trust your gut.
Yeah.
Make the best movie you can and hope for the best.
It's like rolling the dice in Vegas.
Right.
You might hit the jackpot.
Yeah.
Or you might crap out.
Right. But either way.
But either way.
It's going to be one hell of a ride.
It's going to be one hell of a ride. And that's a perfect segue into our next topic.
All right.
The stories behind the bombs.
Of the egos.
The egos.
The rivalries.
The insane amounts of money wasted.
The money.
The behind-the-scenes drama is often just as entertaining as the movies themselves.
Let's dish the dirt. Give us all the juicy gossip.
Oh, yeah.
Tell us about
the
biggest disasters, the most epic meltdowns.
And the biggest disasters, the most epic meltdowns.
And the craziest decisions that led to these cinematic train wrecks.
The craziest decisions.
We'll be back after the break.
We'll be back after the break.
To spill all the tea.
To spill all the tea.
So we were talking about the behind-the-scenes drama.
The good stuff.
Right, the good stuff.
Yeah.
And let's face it, sometimes those stories are more entertaining than the actual movie.
Oh, absolutely. The egos, the power struggles, the insane amounts of money thrown around. It's like a real-life soap opera with a bigger budget and more explosions.
And speaking of explosions, let's talk about a film that had plenty of them.
Okay.
But still imploded at the box office.
Okay.
Waterworld.
Waterworld. Now, this is a movie that's become somewhat of a legend.
Yeah.
This was the most expensive movie ever made.
At the time.
At the time, right?
Yeah.
Post-apocalyptic action flick set in a future where the polar ice caps have melted.
Right.
And the Earth is basically one giant ocean.
One giant ocean. And Kevin Costner, the star and director, was given almost complete creative control.
Wow.
Much like Michael Cimino on Heaven's Gate.
Okay.
The production was plagued with problems, from constantly changing scripts to a runaway budget.
Oh, wow. Well,
to on-set clashes with the crew.
I remember reading about those insane production stories. Like, they built this massive floating atoll set. Out in the ocean, and it kept sinking.
Out in the ocean,
And they even lost a stuntman overboard during filming.
Yeah, it was
Talk about a troubled production.
It was a mess. So the studio eventually stepped in and tried to rein things in. But it was too late.
Too late?
The film went way over budget.
Yeah.
And the final product was a mess.
Wow.
Critics called it a bloated, incoherent mess.
Right.
And audiences just didn't connect with it.
But here's the thing. Despite all the drama.
But here's the thing.
And the negative press. Waterworld has actually developed a bit of a cult following over the years.
It has, yeah.
People appreciate its ambitious scope.
Right.
Its unique setting.
And
its over-the-top action sequences.
Over-the-top action, yeah. It's a perfect example of how a film's legacy can evolve over time.
Right.
What was once considered a massive failure is now viewed with a certain, nostalgic fondness.
Right. So maybe there's hope for some of these other
so maybe
box office bombs.
For some of these other box office bombs.
Maybe one day people will be watching Battlefield Earth.
Battlefield Earth, oh man.
In their living rooms, marveling at its campy dialogue and cheesy special effects.
I wouldn't bet on it.
Yeah, probably not.
But you never know.
You never know.
Right.
Tastes change.
What was once considered terrible can become cool again.
Right. All right, let's wrap this up.
Okay, let's wrap it up.
We've explored the financial fiascos, the creative misfires.
The financial fiascos, the creative misfires.
And the unpredictable nature of Hollywood.
The unpredictable nature of Hollywood.
What's the biggest takeaway for our listeners?
What's the biggest takeaway? What have we learned from these train wrecks?
Yeah.
I think the most important lesson is that even in an industry as driven by money and star power as Hollywood, there's no guaranteed formula for success.
Yet no matter how much money you throw at it, no matter how many A-list actors you cast, there's always a chance.
There's always a chance it's going to bomb.
It's going to bomb.
And that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Right.
The fact that there's still room for failure, for risks, for bold creative choices is what keeps Hollywood interesting.
Right.
It's those risks, those swings for the fences that sometimes lead to the most memorable and iconic films.
Right.
Even if they initially flop at the box office.
Exactly.
So the next time you see a movie that tanks, don't just write it off as a failure. There might be a fascinating story behind it.
Right.
A unique vision that just didn't connect with audiences at the time.
And who knows, maybe someday it'll become your new favorite cult classic.
Maybe. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the wild world of box office bombs.
Absolutely.
We've explored the triumphs.
The triumphs.
The disasters and everything in between.
Until next time.
Until next time.
Keep watching those movies.
Keep watching those movies.
Even the bad ones.
Even the bad ones.
You never know.
You never know.
What hidden gems you might uncover.
What you might find.